Right.
All right, good morning, y'all. We're still missing Villa Rica, but I think we'll go ahead and get started just to stay on track. Hope you all are doing well. It's good to see your faces. Long time no see on some of y'all. So I hope y'all are all right. We are recording this for those communities that couldn't be here and sign on this morning. So let's do welcome and introductions first. As you know, my name is Cherie Bennett, and I have been the program coordinator for the Rural Zone program in the past. But we have a new Rural Zone coordinator, Trisha DePadro. Y'all probably have all worked with her on the tax credit side of things. She is taking over for Rural Zone and Opportunity Zones as I move to a different job. But hopefully I'll get to continue working with y'all as I work with downtowns across the state. We've got pretty good representation. Let's go around. Who do we have from Adel?
Hey, good
Brandy.
morning. This is Brandy Dane.
Hey, Brandy. And Douglas.
Good morning, everyone. This is Georgia Henderson, Community Development Director.
Good morning, Georgia.
Good morning.
Kimmy Forsyth.
Good morning. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. Rossville.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth.
Hey, Elizabeth. Did you have somebody else that was going to join you later?
So I sent her the login information, and she had a pretty busy day, but she was going to try to jump in and on as she could.
Okay, sounds good. Good to see you.
Can you record it? Or sometimes they
In,
don't.
anybody from Villa Rica and Washington?
It's okay. I feel like we gotta have a talk with him.
Washington.
Hi,
Hey.
Brittany Butcher here.
Hey, Brittany. Was anybody else going to join you?
Crystal Martin's in the room with me.
Okay. All right. Hey, Crystal.
Hi.
All right. With that, we will go ahead and get started. So the point of today is, as you already know, your rural zone has expired. And so now it's sort of like, okay, well, what do we do now? We don't have these tax credits. So what are our next steps? And that's really what this workshop is about. Some different programs or loans or things that you could move forward with. So just sort of giving you a taste of these programs, not going into super great detail, but enough to give you an idea of maybe whether or not you might like to pursue these programs. One of the things that I wanted to be sure and let you know is that even though your communities have expired and they expired December 31st of 2024, rural zones are one of our tax credits programs that can amend back up to 3 years, unlike our other tax credit programs. So just keep that in mind. If somebody comes to you that did create jobs last year or the year before that, they can amend their tax returns back up to 3 years to take advantage of the tax credits. Again, if you have any questions about that, you're going to talk to Trish. I just want to put that out there first and foremost. And then I'm going to go ahead and present on the Downtown Development Revolving Loan Fund program and the Opportunity Zone program as some possible programs that you might want to take advantage of. And this is pretty casual, guys, so feel free to jump in and ask questions if you want to. Let me share my screen. Okay, so what is DDRLF? DDRLF is a gap financing program to help projects happen in downtowns. So any downtown with less than 100,000 in population is eligible for this program. Y'all are less than 15,000, so you're certainly eligible for this program. Sorry, let's go back. So it's a gap financing program. Basically, what that means is if you have somebody that's approached you about needing a low interest loan or some help getting a project off the ground, they would first and foremost need to go to a bank to apply for financing. Only if the bank is unwilling to give them the full amount would there be the gap that we could then fill. So the first step for them is to go to the bank if they're asking you about the DDRLF program. But we do provide a lower interest rate than banks. We're in a subordinated debt position to the private bank financing, and we can't offer technical assistance. The project does have to be located in the core historic downtown commercial district and those adjacent historic residential neighborhoods that are on the edges of downtown where some of those buildings have now been rezoned for commercial. So definitely in the core. So if you have somebody asking this out along your gateway corridors coming into the core historic downtown, those would not be eligible. Some of the activities that we can participate in would be land acquisition, building acquisition, new construction, renovation, or any combination of those. Most often, we are in projects that combine building acquisition and renovation. So it's the purchase of a historic building in a downtown and then the renovation of that building. We aren't able to fund working capital costs or operating expenses. We cannot refinance an existing permanent loan that the business may already have. We can't pay for loan administration costs, and our funds cannot be used to be the source for a local revolving loan fund that you're trying to set up. Some of the projects that we've done in the past are, just to give you a taste of what we've done, is law offices in downtown Noonan, Empire South Clothing Store in downtown Hartwell, Scoops Ice Cream Shop in downtown Metter, a co-working space in downtown Canton, the Lift Fitness Studio, downtown Bainbridge, Story on the Square Bookshop in downtown McDonough, Fuzzy Goat Yarn Shop in downtown Thomasville, and then mixed-use spaces including retail and apartments in downtown Dublin and Statesboro. Our typical loan terms are these. We offer a 3% interest rate, and if you are a Main Street city in good standing, a Classic or a Gems Main Street, then you would be eligible for a 2% interest rate. Also want to say that if you are a Plan First community, you would also be eligible for the 2% interest rate. The repayment period is a 15-year term with a 15-year amortization. We don't charge any application fees or loan origination fees, and the application is made by the Downtown Development Authority. So they are the official applicant. So at the loan closing, the DCA will loan the money to the DDA, and simultaneously then the DDA will then loan it to the sub-borrower or the business that needs the funds. At that point, really the DDA is out of the equation because the business is going to make their loan payments each month directly to DCA. And the DDA would not be on the hook if the business were to default on the loan. The maximum loan amount that we can do is $250,000, but at no point can we exceed 40% of total project costs. Our minimum loan is $50,000, so that would be a project cost of $125,000. And then typically our loans are structured this way, with a bank coming in at 50% of total project cost, us coming in at 40%, and owner equity required is 10%. And that does have to be cash equity. We accept DDRLF applications year round, and what we are looking for is definitely there is the gap in financing, that the location of the building is within the core historic downtown area. We want to see that the project fits in with the community's plans for downtown revitalization. So I even ask for you to cut and paste from your community's master plan and on how this particular project fulfills some of the goals that you've put in your master plan. We want to see that the project is going to have a positive impact on downtown. So it's going to take, say, a blighted building and return it to the tax rolls by putting a business in it that's going to create jobs, or taking an empty building and perhaps putting a couple of commercial units on the first floor and some residential units on the second floor. We want to see that positive impact. It does have to go through underwriting, so the project does have to be feasible and sound, and the borrower does need to be creditworthy. As I said, the applications are accepted year-round for this. We have a pre-application and a full application, and those applications are on DCA's website. We do require an initial project assessment with the IPA, or that's what we call the pre-application. And that assessment does need to be done by the DCA regional rep. So if you have a project in mind and it does seem to fit in that it is going to be gap financing and the project is located within your core historic downtown, go ahead and call your DCA regional rep and schedule them to come in and do that initial project assessment. They can sit down with you and the DDA and the potential borrower and talk through the process of the loan and the application. The contact for this now, since I'm no longer doing this, is Sally Maroos, and this is her contact information. You can let her know if you have any questions. Do y'all have any questions for me about the DDRLF?
Washington, Brittany in Washington, we do here. Cherie, I don't know how familiar you are with downtown Washington, but we have a historic hotel here, the Fitzpatrick Hotel, that has a catering company, an event space, and a restaurant inside of it. That property is on shaky ground right now. It is on the National Historic Register, 17-room boutique hotel. It's behind in its taxes and a bunch of other like things that are making it an unstable business right now. There's a potential that we're going to have to try and sell it again soon. And so my question for you is, obviously this is the last time it was purchased in 2019, it was purchased for $1.25 million. And so there's that, and then on top of that, there will need to be a significant amount of rehabilitation to the inside and the roof. So my question to you is that if someone, a potential buyer, is able to obtain funding from the bank, but they need additional funds to cover the
Like the rehab
improvements,
costs?
yeah, is that something that this DDRLF could help with?
Yes. I think years ago, we participated in the Fitzpatrick Hotel with DDRLF, but it's been a while.
It was in 2002.
It has
They
been a
did.
while.
Yeah,
was a
girl, you're dating
historic-
yourself. So
Historic
they
tax credit project as well, and I'm going to talk about those in a minute. So that might be a good fit for them.
okay, gotcha. Yeah, it's been 22 years, 21 years this year that it was fully rehabilitated. It's changed hands a few times. It's just not in a good place. So we're just trying to think of ways to get that ready to go.
Yes. Yes. All right. Any other questions on DDRLF? All right, well, I will move on to opportunity zones. So opportunity zones are one of our job tax credit programs. So with the rural zone program, your businesses were able to take advantage of the rural zone job tax credit, which was $2,000 per new job created. With the opportunity zone, this is our highest job tax credit that's available in the state, and it's a $3,500 job tax credit for each new job created, as long as you meet the threshold of 2. So it does have that 2-job threshold like rural zone did. So the purpose of the Opportunity Zone Job Tax Credit is to offer businesses an incentive to locate in areas of your community that are the most blighted areas of your community. So it's a carrot to get them to locate in an area where otherwise they might not look at, because it does appear to be blighted, but this gives them an incentive if they're going to come in and create a bunch of jobs, that they would be able to get this $3,500 job tax credit per new job created. So why this looks really good to businesses is because here's an example. So City of Commerce, which is Jackson County, is currently a Tier 4 county, and the job tax credit benefits for Commerce would be those in the orange column. you would have to create at least 25 jobs. So a single business would need to create 25 jobs. The tax credit for each of those jobs is $750 per job. The business can use it against up to 50% of their income tax liability, and they do have to be a specific business enterprise. In statute, there is a list of businesses and their NAICS codes that will qualify for business enterprise. But think about more like large distribution centers and those kinds of businesses, not really ones that you would see in a historic downtown area, not retail. But with the opportunity zone, if you were to have an opportunity zone designated in some of the more blighted areas of your downtown, a business could take the tax credits in commerce and only have to create 2 jobs to get a $3,500 job tax credit per job created, which they could use against 100% of their income tax liability. And any leftover, they can then use that against their withholding taxes, and it can be any lawful business. So this chart, like in a nutshell, shows you exactly the benefits of the opportunity zone designation and how a whole lot more folks in downtown and small businesses that might not even be able to create 25 jobs, might only be able to create 2, could take advantage of the opportunity zone tax credits. So the benefits of locating within an opportunity zone for the business, any lawful business could qualify for the tax credits, not just the qualifying business enterprise. You only have to create 2 net new jobs instead of like the 25 that I showed you. The credit is going to be able to 100% be used because you can use it against your income tax liability and withholding taxes. Now, the jobs do have to be full-time jobs working 35 hours a week. So this is going to be different from counting up part-time jobs or FTEs with rural zone. These jobs do have to be full-time jobs on their own. And unlike rural zones that did not have a wage requirement, opportunity zone jobs do have to have, they do have a wage requirement, which as of June 2023 is $636 per week or $33,072 per year. And that number changes each year. It does have to be a W-2 job, just like with rural zone. And this is another slightly, to me, odd thing with opportunity zone is that jobs must be offered health insurance coverage. Now, this doesn't mean that the business has to pay for those employees' health insurance. All it means is that the company needs to try to set up insurance for their employees with a health insurance company and then offer it to the employee when they're hired. The employee can say, no, I do not want health insurance coverage taken out of my paycheck. No, I don't want it. But the company just has to have documentation that the employee denied that health insurance coverage. The jobs do have to be net new jobs to Georgia, just like rural zone. It may not just be jobs moved from another location in Georgia. And it is a 5-year tax credit, like the rural zone tax credit. So as long as those jobs are maintained for 5 years, then the business can keep claiming the credit each year for 5 years. Applications for designation from a community are accepted year-round. If you have an idea of a blighted area in your downtown or in your community that needs some needs this kind of incentive to try to get businesses to locate there, then I would strongly encourage you to call your DCA regional rep to have them come and drive that area with you to make sure that there is actually enough blight to warrant the community moving forward with an application. The applications are approved by both our commissioner here at DCA and the commissioner of the Department of Economic Development. And the things that we are looking for in the application, by the way, the application is not really a a form that you fill out. It's more of a checklist of things that you need to gather together and then submit to DCA as the application. But some of the things that you're going to have to prove within your application are the 4 criteria for opportunity zone, which are poverty, underdevelopment, general distress, and blight. So we already talked about blight, that the regional rep can help you with that. Poverty is that the census block groups in the area that you're wanting to designate as a zone, an opportunity zone, need to have at least 15% or greater poverty in them. And then to make your case for underdevelopment, we want to see that the vacancy rate within your proposed zone has a higher vacancy rate than in other areas of your city, and that there are a lower number of business licenses and building permits being issued in that area than in other areas of your city. To prove general distress in your application, you're going to show us that there is a high unemployment rate in your proposed zone, a higher crime rate in that zone than in other areas of your city, maybe a higher number of code enforcement citations being issued in that area, and a higher number of dilapidated structures in that area. Also, as part of the application process, any parcels that you want to include in your designation need to either be part of an enterprise zone boundary or an urban redevelopment area boundary. And the contact information for that is Trish. So here is her contact information, and you can talk to her about that program. Does anybody have any questions? That was really fast for a complicated program, but do y'all have any questions for us on that? All right. Well, with that, we're going to move on to Molly. And as you know, with your rural zone tax credits gone, you no longer are able to take advantage of the rehab tax credits. So Molly's going to tell you about the historic preservation tax credits and your ability to possibly tap into those. Thanks, Molly.
Good morning. My name is Molly McLam. I am with the Historic Preservation Division, and I will be talking about tax credits and property tax freezes. Here is my email address as well. It will be at the end of the presentation. Again, the 3 tax credit programs or tax incentives programs that our office helps administer are the federal rehabilitation tax credit, the state income tax credit, and the preferential property tax assessment, which is a county property tax freeze. The federal tax credit is only available for income producing projects. The state tax credit, there's actually 2, one for primary residences and one for anything that falls into the second category, which is typically an income producing property. And then the property tax freeze, there's 3 separate categories: income producing, primary, or mixed use. So the first question we usually ask is this program a good fit for my project? Sometimes it's not. Sometimes the applicant's going to want to do work that we wouldn't approve, so they might choose not to participate. It's completely elective. Each project must meet some financial requirements, such as the rehabilitation test. All work must meet the Secretary of the Interior standards. And at this time, all projects must be listed on the National Register. Starting in 2026, there will be an option for the primary residence credit to be applied to certain locally listed projects as well. The state tax credit is a 25% credit on your qualified rehab expenditures. For the income producing credit, there is a 5 million and a $10 million cap. So that would be equivalent to spending 20 million or $40 million. And that is capped at $30 million per year. For the primary residence, that's capped at 100,000 per project, and we have a $5 million annual cap. The property tax freeze is for about 8 years. Then it goes up in the 9th, and in the 10th year, you will pay the full assessed value. And the federal tax credit is a 20% credit on qualified rehab expenditures. There is no limit per project limit or annual limit. It's just not available for primary residences. In order to be eligible, you have to meet what we call the substantial rehab test. So for primary residences, that's typically a $25,000 spend. If you are in certain qualified HUD areas, you may be eligible by spending $5,000 per project. And then for the income producing project, you have to spend 100% of the adjusted basis of the building, which is basically the value of the building. For the property tax freeze, you can see there's a 50% for primary residences, 75% for mixed use, and 100% for income producing properties. And then the substantial rehab test for the federal credit is 100% of the adjusted basis. If you haven't explored NARGIS, which is our tracking website for National Register listed properties, and you want to find out if your property is listed on the National Register, you can, of course, always contact our office or search in NARGIS. There are 10 standards that have to be met for each project, and if you want to learn more about those, the NPS has developed guidance on their website. I recommend the preservation briefs, interpreting the standards, and case studies that they've produced to kind of get a good understanding of what work would be approved and what work wouldn't. You can also sign up on the NPS website to get weekly or every other week case studies that they've been emailing out that are kind of interesting to learn about different projects across the country. We have information on our website under the historic preservation section about the application process and more information about each of these programs. So if you're interested in applying, you can look here. And thank you. And I just wanted to leave some time for any questions.
Any questions for Miss Molly? All right, if not, thank you so much, Molly. You have her contact information if you think of something after we get done. And Daniel is going to tell us about the Plan First program.
Hey, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, let's pull this up. Get you guys the right screen here. Okay, you should now see the Plan First community logos. Yes? All right. Good morning. My name is Daniel Gaddis. I'm the Planning Outreach Coordinator with DCA. And you can see here on the screen that we have several upcoming webinars about the Plan First program. So if you're interested, you're not a Plan First program right now, if you're interested in learning more about what makes a successful application, we talk about the highest scoring questions, the lowest scoring questions, what our review team looks for. As you can see, our first one's coming up February 19th at 9 a.m. And there'll be an email going out this week, actually, inviting all planning directors. I'm sending it to clerks. I'm sending it to chief elected officials, as well as city managers and county managers. So mark your calendar for that one. For those communities that are currently a Plan First community that are ending their 3-year term, we're going to have a webinar for those renewal applicants February 26th at 9 a.m. And this webinar will only be open to those local governments that are Plan First communities that term will be expiring at the end of this year. And then you can also see April 15th, if you are interested, you need to check with our team about your eligibility, and we'll get into what the eligibility aspects are in just a moment. And the full application is due May 15th, 2025. Well, I kind of want to know what some of our communities, what do you already know about Plan First? So if you could pull out your camera and snap that QR code. I know that we're probably a little QR out, but we're on a webinar, so I'd like to know what you guys already know about it, and nothing is an acceptable answer. And we right off the bat get a nothing. I like that. That's good. It means we've got some work to do. Lower interest rate and downtown development revolving loan fund, enhancing community planning. Absolutely. Anybody else? Rewards communities with demonstrated success in comp plan implementation. Absolutely. Was that you, Georgia?
No, I'm challenged. I didn't get the QR code on.
Okay.
It's not coming
Okay.
up. But I do
Thought
know,
it.
like, you can apply for the grant, CDBG each year.
Absolutely.
And like they said with the GFA, opportunities there.
That's right. Absolutely. Thank you, ma'am. And then for those Plan First communities, present or former, I know Washington was, obviously Georgia, Douglas, our Plan First superstar. How have you used some of these incentives that are available?
Well, we've used it in Douglas. Like I say, each year we apply for the CDBG grant rather than every other year, or if we have a successful award. We have different, I think we now have like 4 GFA projects where we apply for the GFA loan. I've got to go that extra step you was telling me about so we can get that even a half point more off on the interest.
Yep.
So it is really a great incentive to have for your community to be on a Plan First.
Thank you for that shout out, Georgia. They're absolutely right. Douglas has made full, you guys have availed yourselves fully of the incentives. Well, let's talk about them. All right. Switching between 3 monitors, guys. Bear with me. All right. So next, so Plan First, put simply, is a community. A Plan First community is one that is recognized by DCA for implementing their comprehensive plan in an exemplary way. Through a community's goals, leadership, public participation, and implementing your plan, communities that are designated a Plan First community are going above and beyond what is required to make sure that they're keeping effective planning a high priority. And we've already talked about some of these, but there are several great reasons why you might want to participate. And each of these might be different for different size communities. This last circle here is talking about something that we're really excited about, and that's growing our access to housing tax credits, as well as CHIP, which is the Community Home Investment Program. And both of these programs are incredibly competitive. And now, if you are a Plan First community and a housing development happens within your community, that you decide to pursue these, you have an opportunity to earn 3 bonus points on both housing tax credits and CHIP. So those are huge. We already talked about GEFA briefly, which is the Georgia Environmental Finance Authority, annual access for Community Development Block Grant, and statewide recognition. So typically, if you're applying for CDBG, Community Development Block Grant, you have access to apply every other year. But with Plan First, you do have access to apply every single year. We already mentioned the 3 bonus points on housing tax credits. You might have heard these referred to as LIHTC, affordable housing developments. And these applications are often decided by fractions of a point. So having the opportunity for 3 is huge. I mentioned CHIP. It's a federal program designed to help communities that are looking to rehabilitate or build new single family by owner, for owner homes. You also get a reduction on other DCA loans like the Employee Incentive Program, the Redevelopment Fund, as well as the Downtown Development Revolving Loan Fund. And I know Cherie already mentioned that. You have an opportunity to get a 2% interest rate on that. You get a 0.5% reduction on GEFA state loans. So if you're in a community where you're looking to expand stormwater, solid waste, sewer, these are great opportunities to capture a 0.5% interest rate, which is when we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars on loans or millions, then those 0.5% makes a huge difference. And lastly, if you are a Plan First community, you can send 2 of your local government representatives to a Community Planning Institute per 3-year cycle. This is a DCA training program that we do twice a year. And for those folks who are more visually minded and want to see it in a different way, you can see that those numbers there. And of course, check out that last stat, unlimited satisfaction points. This picture on the left you see there was actually taken yesterday at our annual planning day at the Capitol. It's where we all invite all the new Plan First communities in our state, and we have an opportunity to meet with, they have an opportunity to meet with their legislators. Sometimes Governor Kemp is able to make it, as you can see on the picture on the right, and I think I see Douglas City Manager there next to Governor Kemp. And so this is a great opportunity to come to the Capitol, be recognized, and also be recognized by a House and Senate resolution honoring your commitment to effective planning. There are currently 19 active Plan First communities as of January 1st, 2025. And like I said, in this room, we have the city of Douglas as an active community. And I know many of you guys we've had conversations about your interest in the program. Now, how do you participate? There are some restrictions to who can even apply for this designation. For example, QLG, which stands for Qualified Local Government, you can't have lost that status more than 4 weeks, 28 days, and or more than twice within a 10-year period. That's 2 plan cycles. This program is at its core about the comprehensive plan, so making sure that you meet all your plan submission deadlines is key to your eligibility. Additionally, your service delivery strategy, SDS, must be verified by us, as well as submitting the required annual surveys of the Government Management Indicators, GOMI, as well as the Report of Local Government Finances, which are mandated by statute. And as you may already know, we also require that the applicant community adheres to your regional commission's minimum performance standards. If you don't know what any of this means, don't worry, I can explain them to you. Happy to do so. Just email me at planning@dca.ga.gov. Miraculously, one of my colleagues captured this real-time image of when I was sharing the requirements of having to maintain qualified local government status for 2 plan cycles, which, as I mentioned, is 10 years. A local government representative did not like that, and I narrowly avoided a penny loafer to my temple. To reward a community as Plan First, we have to ensure that the community has a long history of comprehensive plan adoption and adhering to all the deadlines. And if that makes you want to throw your shoe, I'd ask that you please show restraint. You might be wondering what the Plan First application is asking about and what metrics are the communities being judged. Well, it's helpful to view the application in 4 major buckets: goals, leadership, participation, and implementation. For goals, we're wanting to know if the goals are enjoying community and leadership support. Is the community reaching for aspirational and ambitious goals? Yet, are they achievable? Are these goals that you've outlined in your plan actually moving the needle on decision making? Are you making consistent progress with the adoption, with the implementation of your plan? We want to know for leadership, how is planning being done effectively in your community? We recognize that with small communities in the state of Georgia, rural communities, a lot of times there's not a dedicated planner. Most of the time there's not a dedicated planner. And so we also recognize that planning is done by a whole host of individuals in your community. We want to know what the staff makeup is like. We want to know, is your planning commission active? Are local officials, elected officials, going out and getting the recommended training? And are community leaders being brought to the table for decision making? That first bullet, we want you to know that an effective planning staff, especially in rural areas, means that it may be the clerk, it may be a public works employee, or even sometimes a mayor. And we at DCA have seen highly effective plan implementation coming out of rural communities that had no planner on staff. So don't let that be a barrier. For participation, we want to know how the community is being engaged. Is the community input actually being incorporated, or is it just tokenism? Our last indicator is implementation. The application really gets to the heart of how effective has the local government been in implementing your community work program. Has your local government been consistently finishing planned projects? And are there recent projects that are being highlighted? Here, I want to talk about one of our Plan First superstars, the city of Dublin, Georgia. The city of Dublin is the county seat of Lawrence County and is a town of roughly 16,000 residents. The city of Dublin is one of the few 3-time Plan First designees in the state. Here we show how they took advantage of the Plan First incentives specifically to address housing in their community, or CDBG. They took advantage of back-to-back years of applying and winning CDBG awards, improving neighborhoods. And of course, they also took advantage of that GFA loan to rehabilitate and extend their sewer system, and they enjoyed a ridiculously low 1.8% interest rate on that. There's some before and after pictures of a residential area in Dublin, one of the streets that improved siding, building envelope, increasing home values, and helping build community wealth. Dublin also made several sewer and street improvements with CDBG funds. In Georgia, you know I wouldn't let a Plan First presentation go by without talking about the city of Douglas, one of our Plan First superstars. City of Douglas is a small rural town of roughly 12,000 in population. The city of Douglas is the county seat of coffee. That the city of Douglas was relentless. They had an employment incentive program award, 100 jobs created for Elixir extrusions. They also got back-to-back CDBG awards to address mental health, to address drainage and street improvements, housing neighborhood stabilization funds. They expanded an early Head Start facility, and they also got a 2022 GFA loan $3 million loan, by the way, to upgrade their wastewater treatment, and they're saving roughly $170,000 on their interest rate reduction. In 2024, they took advantage of the new housing tax credit bonus 3 points and are helping to going to be building 48 affordable new units of new construction. Douglas has been extremely active in Plan First and even outside of Plan First, as you know, with the rural zone. They're demonstrating how a local government can really they also won a CDBG award last year as well. This is in Douglas, before and after. This is their mental health facility from a 2020 award of $750,000 to build a mental health substance abuse treatment facility to address these issues, estimated to benefit 951 people. And if you're still not convinced, I would again encourage you to check out that webinar February 19th at 9 a.m. And this is sort of an overlap graphic that I created with several other programs that some we've mentioned. So this is not all inclusive. For example, I don't have any of Molly's programs listed on this, but you can see the rural zone on the left side and what the main tenets of that program are, and then where the overlap in other programs might occur when we talk about job tax credits, the Downtown Development Revolving Loan Fund, Employment Incentive Program, the Redevelopment Fund. You can see that there's overlap going through. And I think, Cherie, you can make this available to the audience if they need it.
Do you have any other questions for Daniel?
I was going to say, these are also not part of DCA's programs, but great resources as well. The Georgia Cities Foundation, the Economic Development Placemaking Collaborative, and the UGA Archway Partnership, showing some overlap of some other programs.
Yeah, and Sadie will be talking about placemaking in a sec.
Nice. Any questions? All right. Well, thank you, Cherie.
Thank you, Daniel. And I want to apologize because under introductions, I didn't let the DCA regional reps introduce themselves. I'm so sorry, you guys. Please forgive me. But we do have Tanya Mull, Region 6. And Kelly, you want to introduce yourself?
Good morning. I'm Kelly Lane, and I serve the Region 11 area of the state, which is Tifton, Valdosta, Waycross, Douglas area, and I'm Executive Director of the Georgia Academy for Economic Development.
Karin?
I'm Karin Thornton. I'm the Director of the Office of Regional Services at DCA, and I also work with the 10 counties in Region 4, West Georgia.
Miss Tina?
Hello, Tina Hutchison. I'm the Region 7 representative. That's the Augusta region.
I think that's all of y'all, right? All right. Again, I'm sorry, you guys. All right. So next we've got Jessica Reynolds. She's going to talk to us about the GIC program. Morning, Jessica.
Can y'all see my presentation?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank y'all for having me. I see lots of familiar faces on here. So my name is Jessica Worthington. Formerly, I was with the Office of Downtown Development at DCA before Cherie actually took over. So we're all kind of like playing tag team and shuffling a little bit in-house. I love it though. So I'm now with the Housing Finance and Development Division. I'm the interim deputy division director down here. And Austin Chansey, who works as part of our division, asked if I could kind of step in and give this presentation today. And I said, talking about housing in downtown, I don't know if I can do that. Yes, absolutely. So we'll keep it brief, but we're going to have fun today. So let's see if I can. All right, there we go. So, what is affordable housing? So, a lot of times when we think of affordable housing, we think of our LIHTC program. And you guys know that in government, we love a good acronym. So LIHTC stands for Low Income Housing Tax Credits. And those are like our competitive 9% deals that people are building. Again, affordable housing, usually that meets a certain percentage of the area median income. At DCA, we don't usually say, we'll say the acronym or we'll say housing tax credits. And a reason for that is because sometimes LIHTC gets a bad rap, right? Or affordable housing, the term affordable may not get the best rap. But we also like to call it attainable housing, workforce housing, because, this is really the place that, people who are working in our school systems, people who are first responders in our community, people who are teachers, they're living in these housing developments. So it's not like I like to say, it's not like what your mom and dad think of when they're thinking of affordable housing. And so the idea is that affordable means that a person is not spending more than 30% of their income on housing related expenses like your rent, your mortgage, or utilities. The reality is a lot of folks are considered housing burdened. And that means more than 30% of your income is going towards those things like your rent, your mortgage, or utilities. So, to move something. Okay. So, why would we want to put housing downtown? If you ask me, it's because downtown is the place to be, right? We've got retail, we've got shops, we've got so much happening at these like core of these communities. It's a great place for workers to walk to work, have access to employment opportunities, but honestly, it's the heart of our communities. And this, again, helps address the need for more housing. One of the things that I love to point out of why we would want to do housing downtown is because it helps make projects cash flow. So when you think of like, the heart of our communities being built 100 plus years ago, we had these multi-story buildings, right? So we used to have either commercial all the way through the project or commercial on the bottom and residential or office space up top. When we're only using the bottom commercial space, right, the entire building has to carry the note just based on whatever you're bringing in for like the commercial rental income. So by diversifying that space and adding office spaces upstairs, or ideally rental units, or even if you're like the city of LaGrange, you've got some kind of condoed out units that people own on the upper stories. You're helping to make the project cash flow. You're helping to make the property more viable, more sustainable, and financially more independent. And then lastly, of course, it creates a vibrant atmosphere for your community. So I'm going to talk briefly about our DCA housing development programs. I'm only going to kind of really touch on two of them, the ones that I think would be kind of most relevant for you guys. So first we've got, again, our housing tax credit. And again, that's going to refer to our low income housing tax credit program. So this is about affordable multifamily rental units. So the way it works is primarily it's focused on developers, but again, communities come into play. So a developer would apply to DCA for a tax credit to offset the cost of the project. In exchange, we don't just get to say, hey, here's all your credits, go to town. What we say is we want to make sure that so many of your units are set aside to be affordable. And in some places that may be 30% of AMI, other places it may go up to 60% of your area medium income. And, just so you're aware, in places like Savannah, that can be $60,000, $70,000. So again, we're not talking about, the the people in your community that may not be seen as contributing, these are, this is your workforce. We're helping to house them. And again, we help make sure that these projects are right sized to the community. Our 9% and 4% applications are competitive, meaning that, we want to make sure that the best of the best is getting funded. We do have limited resources, unfortunately. But we do have, for those rural communities who are like, man, we can never compete against the metro areas or Atlanta, we do have special set asides to make sure that we are filling that need in the rural areas as well. And then the next program I'm going to talk about is CHIP, our Community Home Investment Program. So this is going to be a little bit different than our tax credit program. So tax credits, we're thinking rental units, we're thinking, multifamily. Here we're thinking affordable single family home ownership. And the way this works is it's a grant to local governments, nonprofits, or housing authorities. The funding goes to them, and then that funding can be used to build new affordable homes that they can sell, or it can be used to rehab existing homes that are owned by low-income homeowners. So again, an opportunity to help revitalize your existing housing stock, or to allow you to, as a local government, to invest in your own community and help create affordable housing. And then one of the ways you can learn about bringing more affordable housing to your community is through something we like to refer to as GIC, which is Georgia's Initiative for Community Housing. And so GIC is a 3-year kind of like education and technical assistance program that's designed to teach communities about affordable housing, how to stimulate housing investment. This is a partnership that we do with UGA and GMA, and honestly, the way it works, and we have seen a lot of downtown focused communities come and participate in GIC over the years. But over this 3-year span, you get partnered with facilitator, you get technical assistance, you get educational opportunities, and we help you develop this, actionable community housing plan. And the idea is that you graduate at the end of 3 years. You've got plans that you can use, implement, take to the bank. You understand maybe how to attract developers to your community. You understand what they're looking for. Again, we're really just kind of like helping you as a community focus on housing, what that looks like for your community, because the reality is that everybody has different needs, and then figure out a game plan for how to implement that. So over the past 20 years that we've been implementing GIC, we've had over 100 communities participate and have had a lot of great success. If this is something, this is just like a little map to show you kind of like how widespread the program has been. You can see you probably yourselves or have neighbors that have participated. Again, what do GIC communities do? First is about organization. It's about creating this like local coalition of like-minded folks who are all focused and invested in supporting housing, the development of housing in your community. It's about building capacity, understanding the resources that are out there, the education process of like what happens behind the scenes and how do you get projects funded? How do you make sure that what you're doing is competitive? And then the development of a plan, like what are we going to do? How, what is this going to look like? What are our goals, strategies? How are we going to, and then implement it, right? So where do we start with that implementation process? For those of you on the call who have been involved in the Main Street program, you know that work plan development is a huge component to your success. So this is the same kind of concept. It's taking that work plan, but just specifically applying it to housing for your community and just making sure that we're dotting our I's, crossing our T's, and really considering all these different elements and factors that are going to come into play. So if you're interested in becoming a GIC community, you're kind of hitting us at the right time. Applications open in May and close in July. You do have to formally apply to be considered. Austin Chansey is the gentleman that runs this program, or oversees like this application process for us here at the agency. And I would say, it would start with a phone call, right? Or a message to him to set up a phone call to say, hey, would this be potentially a good fit for us and our community? Is this what we're, aligned with kind of like our vision and what we're trying to achieve? And then it kind of looks, if you get the green light, it would, the next step would be putting together that formal application and looking at like, who would our housing team be? Like, who are stakeholders and folks that are excited about being involved in this and who are going to help us get this, ball down the field. All right, time's up. Thank you guys. Appreciate you. Are there any questions? I'll stop sharing. Thank you.
Any questions, guys, for Jessica?
I know it's a lot to throw at you quickly, but if y'all need anything else, you know where to find me.
Thanks, Jessica.
Yep.
All right, well, I will turn it over to Sadie, who's going to talk to us about the Placemaking Collaborative.
Let me share my screen. Hold on. That working for everyone?
Yes.
Great. And some of you, like Adele, for example, you know all this, placemaking. So you can chime in if you want to add anything to it. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Georgia Economic Placemaking Collaborative. But before I do that, I'm just going to share some resources that are free and available to all of you. If you would like to get some inspiration for placemaking or think about some projects in your community or pass this on to those who might already be doing these projects. So placemaking, a definition from the Project for Public Spaces, is that it inspires people to collectively reimagine and reinvent public spaces as the heart of every community. It's all about connecting people to places so that they feel like that place belongs to them, represents them, and has meaning, so that over time they continue to care for it and invest in it. Place-based economic development is a little different than traditional economic development that kind of looks at maps and projects and zoning. That's all important, but this kind of starts with people and places that are already there and exist and that people interact with. So it kind of is a bottom-up approach. Because it involves the people and the existing assets in a community, it can be more inclusive and touch more people. It encourages collaboration, and it has holistic improvements that can happen over time. Placemaking is all about little changes and an iterative process that you try something and then you continue to do it more if it works, and you evaluate it and redo it if it doesn't work, and you kind of make small investments over time before you make a big investment from a city. So you do small projects and you see how people interact with it, if they love it, if they don't, and then you put more planning and money into it once you know that it really resonates with the community. It's all about creating that sense of place and a unique identity. Here are some examples from some of our placemaking cities, some things that they've done that worked for them. This is in Covington. They partnered with an arts organization and painted some of their hydrants downtown. In Fitzgerald, Georgia, they took an old, I think it was old basketball court that was just fenced in concrete, and realized that they had some skaters in their community and a little business that was making the wheels for the skateboards, the decks. And so they said, let's make this into a temporary skate park. Since then, they've made many more upgrades to it, and the land that you can kind of see through the fence there, you can see a little bit of some dirt and stuff. The public works guys had an idea of let's develop all this into a BMX bike where you can ride bikes and have all kinds of ramps and fun things that I would have loved when I was a kid. And the business that did the skateboards partnered with a neighboring community who made the boards for it. They make the decks, and then one of their co-owners is a guy who loves dirt bikes, and he's like, I want to do this. And so they've expanded their business into biking too. So you can see how that has that economic impact when it connects and resonates with the community. Here's another example from the city of Young Harris. They painted some crosswalks along with college students. They started featuring local artists in this little traveling exhibit that was in different spots around town in some of their government buildings, their libraries, and even some shops. And they worked on some branding for trails. You can see there the Cupid Falls. And this all came from their community team identifying what makes us special and how do we represent that in our community more. And then for them, it's also programming. So they decided to do a Porch Fest where they had little concerts all around town and people walked to hear local musicians and enjoy the businesses and little markets and pop-up shops and things. So programming that's meaningful and represents your community is also part of placemaking. Here's an example of inclusive playground, and so, again, some art on crosswalk that's not painted. It's like an applique. And then for this community in Gainesville, the train's a big deal. And so they got this train that was a historic train and made it a centerpiece of their parks. And Gainesville has done so much in placemaking, way more than you can see in these slides. And I encourage you guys, if you're able to attend the Georgia Downtown Conference this year, this in August, it will be in Gainesville and they'll be showcasing a lot of their projects. It will be very inspiring. They've done some incredible stuff in their downtown and trails, and placemaking creative arts is a big component of it. Next, even in Greensboro, one thing that they've done with placemaking is really highlighted their historic properties. So they have like an audio interpretive stations and ways that they're telling their local story to visitors and people who might not know it in the community too, trying to create that connection more with the past into the present. Thomasville, they used placemaking to create these little parklets. That's a movable outdoor seating piece, and they can lift it up on a forklift and transfer it to other parking places. That was a creative thing that they've done, and they partner a lot with their arts organization to do things like the Flaunt 2022. That's a Monopoly. Those are temporary murals that they put around town with this Monopoly game where you go to different stores. They identified spaces for bike racks. That's temporary chalk there. So a lot of it, again, it's temporary, it's pop-up, even this little library that they took out into the community. So their downtown's really successful in Thomasville. So they use the placemaking program to think about how do we move some of these principles into other areas of our city that haven't felt like they're a part of all the energy and growth in downtown. And so that was just a different way for them to specifically apply the principles to their context. Okay, some free resources, and this is what we use and borrow in our program. One is Project for Public Spaces. They're kind of the authority on placemaking, and they have tons of free resources out there, and you can find them at pps.org. So anybody can go there and get inspired, and occasionally they have grants that come through. Another one is Creative Placemaking Toolkit, and this is with lisc.org. So you can kind of go through their site, and they have a really cool toolkit and examples from all over the United States. All of these are national, so they have, and international in some cases, so tons of examples. Another one I want to share is the Center for Community Progress. Now, this organization kind of started in addressing vacancy and blight through housing in areas where in neighborhoods, and then they realized one of the easiest things to do for vacant properties or vacant lots is apply placemaking, because it can pull the whole neighborhood and community together and create that collective care for little spots that have, if not cared for, turn into places where things get dumped and trash happens, and it doesn't become a key place that you're proud of. And placemaking helps create places they're proud of. So they have this incredible resource of all these examples and projects, and you can click through and it kind of describes the project. It describes how much it costs, the volunteer hours. It's a really cool database of all kinds of ideas for placemaking. The Brookings Institute, they have a lot of studies and research on the impact of placemaking to transform places, especially in areas that you might not realize placemaking can have an impact, such as crime rates, reducing poverty. I mean, a lot of the bigger issues, complex issues that we face as communities, placemaking can move the needles on those in an indirect way. And so they have a lot of studies kind of describing that. So it's really a great tool and resource to kind of argue why this is a meaningful investment for your community. And then Rural America has this placemaking assessment survey that you can go in and just kind of rate your community and see, according to their measures, how they, there it is, how that you kind of have the tools in place already. This book is a great book, and I would say it's kind of the primer on how to do placemaking. And again, it's from pps.org, and they have a lot of free downloads. So you can go and get this information and other stuff that's not as thorough, but lots of free downloads there. And then I want to tell you about our Georgia Economic Placemaking Collaborative. So all that material, if you're like, I don't have time to go out and get it on my own, then you should consider applying for the Georgia Economic Placemaking Collaborative. It's similar to the GIC program in that you apply, you get accepted with a group of cities. So that's kind of your cohort, your class for placemaking, and it's a 2-year program. So in the first year, we kind of talk about the philosophy and the principles of placemaking. And then in year 2, we focus in more on project development, kind of trying some projects, how to get funding and implementation. And I'll say the key component, just like with GIC, is building a community team. So getting that team of stakeholders together where you guys come to the retreats, you plan specifically for your community. And then as an alum, we continue to check in with you and send out resources as we have them, like grants and other information. And then we are going to be planning an alumni event for our cities in conjunction with the Georgia Downtown Conference this fall in Gainesville, which Gainesville is one of our alumni cities, as you saw. So also, it's not mentioned here, but we have grants that are associated with participation. So if you are a part of the placemaking program, you have access to a first-year grant that is up to $500, and then a second-year grant up to $2,500. So there is a fee to participate for each community, $1,000 total, but you can get $2,500 back to your community for project implementation through the process. So that was our way of saying, have some skin in the game, but we want to give it all back to you. The way it works is for the 2 years, the first year, we have an orientation with our new cities, and then we have a retreat in the spring. You meet with or paired with a facilitator from one of our partner organizations. You have meetings with them and kind of homework in between the retreats. And then we meet again in the fall, usually in September, for a fall retreat. And then, as I mentioned at the end, there's a lighter, quicker, cheaper is what those letters stand for, LQC project, and you have grant support for that project. And then year 2, kind of the same pattern, 2 retreats a year. And then you have access to the other grant application, team meetings throughout the year. And then we recognize our graduating cities at the Cities United Summit in January. And we just recognized Sylvester for completing the program just this past weekend. So that is the rhythm and the pattern for the program. And as I said, the goal is to help your team and your community develop a specific plan that focuses and builds on your local assets. There are partners that help make it possible. So they provide facilitators for us. Georgia Power provides funding support. And more information about the Georgia Economic Placemaking Collaborative, it happens under the Georgia Cities Foundation nonprofit, which is under the umbrella of GMA. And so if you go to the georgacitiesfoundation.org, you can find more information about the Placemaking Collaborative. And applications are available online in the fall of each year. Usually September is when they go live at the Georgia Cities Foundation website. And apply online, and we notify cities by the end of the year, and then you get rolled into the 2-year program. So happy to answer any questions you might have about placemaking in general or the collaborative. Great, thank you guys.
Thank you, Sadie. Appreciate you taking the time to share with us. Thanks. All right. So if you don't have any questions for Sadie, we're going to just roll into the time where I'd like to ask y'all some questions about Rural Zone and how it worked in your community, what worked and what didn't work, and just have a time of sharing. What we're doing with this information is just trying to make the program better. So if you have suggestions of things, of ways that DCA can help you more, or if we can do more training for you. I know this may not affect you guys, but it would affect future Rural Zone communities. So do y'all have any suggestions for things that perhaps DCA could do better?
Cherie, this is Georgia. I would just like to share something we did in Douglas with Rural Zone. First of all, we partnered up with our executive director for the Downtown Development Authority to make sure between the two of us, because she's out on the streets more than I am with the downtown businesses, to make sure she understood the program so she can disseminate the information. And also we make sure our code enforcement officers know about it. And the reason being is they're the ones that process our business licenses. So we
Mhm.
gave them a map that they keep at the front desk, and whenever a business comes in, and if they're in that zone, they would give them the brochure and information and schedule an appointment in time to where either I have to call them or meet with them and go out and talk to them about it. We also made sure that our building inspector knew about the program as well, because he would be out and these people would know about the new business before I would even know. So we made that connection. We found out that worked pretty well for us.
Yeah, I think that's a great strategy. Yes. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, ma'am.
Anybody else? Anybody else have a strategy that worked well in your community to either get the word out about the program or somebody that was maybe a cheerleader for you in your community? Well, what do you think was the most difficult thing that you encountered in being the rural zone team leader over the 5 years that you were involved?
For me, I think one of the most difficult parts was getting the businesses to actually participate. I know Cherie, you know that we had a couple here, and we actually both talked to them, and it's like they just don't take advantage of it. And I don't know if it was, the delivery. I mean, you talked to her, and I talked, we talked to the different people, but it's just letting them know that it's there. And especially, I just came into this position in 23, and it was a lot of information to learn. And just my personality type is I don't want to repeat it if I can't deliver it properly. And me trying to get the information and learn it in enough time before it expired, it was also a struggle for me. So I feel like by the time I learned what I needed to learn, it was almost time for it to expire.
Yeah, and, I think Brandy dealt with that, so she was not the one that put together the application. Same with Brittany. She was not the one that put together the application. So somebody wrote the application, and then that person was in the job for a minute, then that person left, and then Kimmy came in and had to, yeah, try to figure out a new job and this new program. Same with Brandy and same with Brittany. So it was hard when you weren't the one that got the program started. Yeah. But I also will say, Kimmy and I, this one lady who we have tried and tried to get to take the tax credits because she purchased a building, she rehabbed the building, and she created I don't know, 10, 15 jobs maybe. And we both approached her at different times. She was also invited to a public meeting that I did in Forsyth. She couldn't come to that. Um, I was in the restaurant a couple of times and talked to her. I told her if she didn't have time to think about it, that I'd be willing to speak to her CPA about the program, gave her my card, and then just crickets. So it's like you're begging somebody to utilize the tax credits that you know is eligible, and you just hate to see that person leave that money on the table, but you've done everything you can to try to get her to take advantage of it. So that's really frustrating. Anybody else? Elizabeth, what were I know you have worked with, let's see, you're working with Lafayette, you've worked with Rossville. Who else are you working with up there? That's a rural zone
I try to
community.
support as many communities as possible. The challenging piece, obviously, with Rossville is we were a community in deep transition, and we had quite a lot of momentum going into COVID. We were not one of the communities at first that saw a huge capital influx of acquisition of properties. We were still sort of limping along, and it was still really difficult for us to get small businesses to move into the city to be able to be that defining marker to be able to capitalize on that. So we ended up, once we were, I guess in 2021, 2022, we did see quite a lot of property moving at that point. But because the community was still in such transition, it was really challenging to get small businesses to come in. Once we did, some of those businesses, once I kind of left my role with the city, there wasn't someone that was hired behind me to continue on, and the DDA did their best they could. The DDA didn't have a hired staff position either, so it was all volunteer led. So we had a couple of small businesses come in, but a lot of them ended up shutting down pretty quickly, and so it was just really challenging. But one thing that we did do is we brought you up, and I think Patrick, and we did kind of a lunch and learn with Lafette, and that honestly was very helpful. And we keyed those stakeholders to bankers and real estate agents, property owners, engaged stakeholders, and that was actually very helpful. And then I gave several presentations to the regional Realtors Association to also talk to them about that, that were involved in commercial real estate. And it was still really helpful. It didn't necessarily convert to a lot of applications, but it was still really helpful to kind of get information in. I think the challenging thing too that I've seen in both communities is, in rural downtowns, you do have a lot of businesses that end up being 1099 employees, like salons and, nail salons, hair salons, real estate agencies. And so it's challenging that those jobs technically don't convert into this, because we do have a lot of buildings that were acquired, in particular in Lafette. And we kind of had a surge in new salons and new day spas come in, but they couldn't qualify technically. And, we have the same problem that someone else mentioned. We have some people would qualify and, would not submit their certifications. And I would say, just like you did, please connect me with your accountant or your bookkeeper and let's talk about it. I'll send them all of this information, and still not getting people to convert. And it's, I don't know if their tax liability wasn't large enough, which I can't imagine. I don't know. I do not understand that part, when people actually could utilize it and still chose not to submit.
That's frustrating. Brandy, I know you were kind of running into that too, but I did want to ask you had, so I didn't come down to Adel, but I was online, but you did have Taylor come and speak. So Taylor Smith, who is the Rural Zone team leader in City of Thomaston, spoke. Do you think that helped, Brandy? Because he was saying how it had been implemented in his community and what was happening in his community, did that drum up some excitement?
The lunch and learn was really successful, but again, we were awarded it at the end of 2019, and so March 13th, 2020, the whole world shut down, and so I feel like the ones that ours have just expired really got kind of punished, and I wish that we could get an expansion, because I was just getting started on it. So it seems like for the first 2 years of 20 and 2021, we had no momentum hardly, because the employees were working half a day just not to be around each other. But what was successful to help is I just walked around downtown, and I was constantly on QPublic to see when the buildings were sold, because you said you can go back 3 years, and that has really helped. And taking the applications and explaining it, I have spoken with the realtors. They were invited to the lunch and learn. Taylor was very phenomenal in helping of the success. That helped. I invited people from other areas, not just Adel, but people from Valdosta, Moultrie, Nashville, to see if they would invest in the rural zone area. Several people from Valdosta came and said, I wish I'd have known about the rural zone sooner, because I could have expanded. But it was expiring, so they really couldn't do much when we had that last January. I also had signs made up and took it to the realtors to stick right beside their for sale sign. That helped. I made up folders with all of your information, Cherie, Taylor's information, our information, the downtown revolving loan fund, all the tax credits that they could get, and I would hand out folders. I gave folders to the girls that work in customer service at the city hall because that's where they go apply for business license. So that was successful, but I just wish COVID didn't get us because I think that we would have had more success.
Yeah, yeah. What's something about the program that you really wished you had known or focused on from the very beginning? So, hindsight's 2020. So is there anything that you can think of that we should stress to any of the new communities coming on board, like what they should just hit the ground running with that you wished you had?
Not that I wish that I had, but you've got to implement that it's job tax credit, that is the whole purpose of the rule zone. Because a lot of people, like Elizabeth was saying, it was a salon, 1099, or self-employed, they wouldn't get in a W-2. So the people that are starting up, they've got to stress that, this is job tax credit. You've got to have 2 full-time employees, whether it be 1 40 hours and 2 20 hours each, and they have to get a W-2. So please, they really, 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 really need to keep that information out there about job, because a lot of people would get upset. Well, I bought a building and I repainted and I did, but okay, but do you have 2 full-time employees? No, I don't have that. And I'm like, well, then you can't get it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
I do think that is challenging, especially in rural communities, because it's still creating tremendous economic impact.
Yes.
When you have those 1099 employees.
Oh, yeah.
And, a lot of the business models now for sustainable retail are smaller like floor plans. And a lot of them are doing, kind of online sales. And so they're using a portion of their store now for shipping. And so it creates less need for more of those part-time employees, but it's no less important of a, commercial stakeholder in your downtown. And, we're also seeing, enhanced fitness concepts, and it's the exact same situation. We have a gym in Lafette, and again, it doesn't qualify. And so
those are 1099s as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it's still creating jobs, and it's still creating economic output, and it's still generating revenue and tax revenue for the communities.
Right.
And
and
animating buildings. Yeah.
Right. I can think of, a couple instances in downtown Forsyth, which is where I live and where Kimmy works. And Kimmy, I'm thinking of Wild and Rooted. That I believe was an empty building, blighted. It now looks like $1 million. She's probably got 10 to 12 employees, women working in there, but they're all 1099s. But she's done a beautiful job rehabbing the building. So it removed a vacant, blighted building from the tax rolls, but she didn't get to benefit from the rural zone tax incentives. Anybody else?
I'm just going to ask you, is there any opportunity to enhance the policy or to change any of the requirements at this point? Because I realize and I see the value in having W-2 and trying to work hard to create W-2 employees, and yet it's just not the full ecosystem of rural communities.
Yeah, I mean, my gut says no, because Trish, correct me if I'm wrong, all the tax credits require W-2 employees.
They do.
Every one of the job tax credits.
And it requires a legislative change if it's going to be modified. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. We're sitting in the same room together. So yes, I agree with you, Elizabeth. That would help, but Right now we're just trying to get the program expanded. So we can keep doing this and it won't sunset. So anything else that you wish you had known from the beginning and focused on or stressed more with your community? Yeah, W-2s and job creation is the key to unlocking the other two tax credits. All right, is there anything you could think of that DCA could do to improve the program? Meaning, is there anything that Trish could do? Now that Cherie's leaving and she did such a bad job, what could Trish do to make the program better? Any ideas? Thoughts? Kelly, you look like you've got an idea.
No, ma'am.
She's like, yeah,
No,
just let
I don't.
Cherie go.
I just would just advertise it more, maybe do a sponsored ad on Facebook, before when they're applying for the process, really just the lunch and learn, I really would have that right away with stakeholders and real estate agents and bankers and accountants. Word of mouth, really.
I agree. We were in Rossville. We didn't do this in Lafayette, but in Rossville, we were still in such deep transition that we were a little terrified of speculation and people holding properties and all of a sudden, thinking their properties are worth $1 million and, not allowing people to buy them at market rate. And that was, I think, while we had a little bit of that, it really wasn't as big of a problem. And to Brandy's point, I wish we had just done an all-out blitz everywhere, all the time, all at once, and get as much information out to people instead of kind of going. We did some recruitment and we worked with real estate companies, but I wish we had just kind of done that all-out assault on digital media and promotion pretty widely.
Materials, but
Yeah,
together.
that's good advice. That's good advice to share.
Maybe a workshop on digital advertising, because maybe that is something that communities really could do. I mean, it's just the nature of the world we live in, and trying to help promote it in the digital space is something that's probably really would be beneficial to a lot of communities.
Okay.
I wouldn't necessarily say that you did a bad job. I mean, I know within a couple weeks of me getting this position in 23, you and Tanya both were here. It was just, I was fighting for my life at that point. I was trying to figure out what I was doing with Main Street and DDA.
Right. Yeah,
but
I mean, this was like 35th on your list of tasks that you were
I was trying to figure
responsible
out
for.
what I was supposed to be doing across the board. And I just maybe if and you all gave me a lot of information, but I just think it was so much to where I didn't really even know where to start on top of trying to figure out my job. So I don't know if maybe something that kind of breaks it down. And like you said, the application that was created wasn't created by me. I just didn't really know a lot about what I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
So I feel like you all did a great job because, like I said, within weeks of me even getting in position, you and Tanya both were here talking to me. Once y'all left, it kind of got put somewhere, and I didn't really pick it back up again because I was fighting for my life with Main Street at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe on our end, a little bit more touching base with people to make sure that they're understanding the program, especially when there's somebody that is new coming in, taking over from somebody else, that, that other person had gone through the orientation and kind of been through all the training, but then you come in new and yeah. So I think that's something that we could do is continue to touch base with those folks that are new.
And knowing what information I need to keep up with on the front end. Because, when I came in, there was no one here to really train me. So I didn't know, well, you need to keep up with the sales of all the buildings. And you need to keep up with all this. So it's like when we get the forms like what we have that's due, I'm like, oh, I didn't even really, because a lot of times buildings sell it doesn't come to me. I don't know anything about it. It kind of just exchanged hands. You know, if they're going to be like a retailer or a restaurant, I know about it. But if they're
Right.
just a lawn care service coming to downtown, they don't have any interest in participating in any events. They don't talk to me. So that's something that I didn't know. So now when they ask, like, you know, well, how many jobs were created in all these businesses, I don't know all of them. Like, I just found out we had a whole business, a consulting business on the other side of the square. I never even knew it. It didn't come to me. The business license, they didn't send that to me. Like, I just didn't know until I think somebody posted on Facebook about it. I'm just like, well, where is that? And it's on the
Yeah.
side of the square that I never really, nothing's really down there. So I didn't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I also, I would recommend a mentor because if someone like Taylor Smith, he had his town is similar to Adel, and that was so wonderful. Us comparing what has been so successful for him, and we could use those examples. But just like with Main Street, you're assigned a mentor, and there was no way I would have survived Main Street without having my mentor. And so I
That's a
think
great
that
idea.
if
That
you
is
would
great.
get when either with somebody coming in and you're already in the midst of the rule zone or these new programs that are getting awarded, I mean, you can ask all of us that have graduated. I'll be glad to be a mentor to someone and talk about the successes and
That's a great idea, Brandy. Thank
It
you.
is.
Yeah.
you're welcome.
Because I know that has happened naturally, but it hasn't been something that I have facilitated. But I know at the beginning, a lot of people went to Amanda Glover and Bainbridge, and now folks are tagging on to Taylor. So great idea. Anything else, you guys? Well, I appreciate y'all taking the time to join us today, and I appreciate your comments and suggestions and just being honest with me. And let us know if we can do anything for y'all, okay? All right. Thank you.
Good
Bye,
luck with your new
y'all.
roles.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.